Imagine thousands of candles burning in a London ballroom, each flame reflecting off the diamonds adorning the ladies' necks. This isn't Hollywood. This is the reality of the 18th century. Georgian-era jewellery isn't just silent witnesses in museum cases. These pieces lived, breathed, and sparkled in the candlelight. Today, we're stepping into an era where jewellery was more than just an ornament. Each piece was a blend of status, emotion, memory, and art. When King George I ascended the English throne in 1714, no one suspected that an era lasting over 120 years was beginning, an era that would become one of the most outstanding periods in jewellery art. 4 King George followed one another on the British throne, and during this time, social, scientific, and cultural changes took place that fundamentally reshaped people's lives, and of course, the world of jewellery. Scientific discoveries came one after another. World explorations revealed new continents. The arrival of the railway revolutionized transportation, and perhaps most importantly, the social role of women slowly began to transform. Georgian jewellery cannot be understood without the context of social life. In upper circles, the culture of evening gatherings truly blossomed at this time. Dinners, balls, card parties followed one after another, and each event provided an opportunity for ladies to show off their most beautiful jewels. And here's the key. All of this happened by candlelight. The light of candles behaves completely differently from modern electric lighting. It's a soft, warm, flickering light that refracts in a special way on the surface of diamonds and coloured gemstones. Jewelers knew this very well and designed their creations specifically for this light. When better quality candles became more accessible to a wider audience, the culture of wearing jewellery truly became more democratic, by the standards of the time, of course. The art styles of the Georgian era followed each other in 3 clear phases, and each one gave jewellery its own special look. At the beginning of this period between 1714 and 1760, the Baroque style was in charge. These jewels used fancy patterns, and symmetry was very important. But what's really interesting is that the designs were open, like lace. We're not talking about solid, heavy pieces here, but creations that, even though they were delicate, were also bold and big. Imagine a brooch that doesn't just shine on a flat surface, but its pattern is see-through, airy, as if it were woven from lace but made of gold and diamonds. Around 1760, however, the Rococo style took over, and this brought a big change to jewellery making. Rococo jewellery became even lighter, airier, and more playful, and this is where asymmetry really showed up as a design idea. At the same time, many themes from the Baroque period stayed. Bows, flowers, ribbons, and leaves decorated the pieces. Rococo was all about not forcing anything, letting everything be natural and light. Because of this, the jewellery almost seemed to form itself. This was the time when elegance wasn't shown by weight or size, but by the art of delicacy. From the 1780s onwards, a completely different world opened up: Neoclassicism. The excitement for ancient Greece and Rome spread through all art, and of course, jewellery was no exception. Laurel wreaths, grape clusters, ancient scenes on cameos. Everything brought to mind the ancient world. And when Napoleon's Egyptian campaign brought news of the pharaoh's treasures and the mystery of the pyramids, Egyptian themes also appeared: papyrus leaves, scarabs, and pyramid shapes. The jewellery looked to the past, but at the same time, it carried the social messages of the present. The Enlightenment, knowledge, and respect for ancient wisdom were all in a well-chosen design. Now, we need to talk about the materials, because the gold used in the Georgian era wasn't like what we're used to today. Every piece of gold jewellery was at least 18 carats, but often even higher in purity. And perhaps the most special thing, these jewels were made entirely by hand. Before the rolling mill was invented in 1750, apprentices had to hammer solid gold ingots until they reached the desired thickness. Creating a single necklace or brooch was the result of months of precise work. Silver played a special role in the Georgian era, especially for setting gemstones. Today, we take white gold for granted, but it didn't exist then, and platinum wasn't yet used for jewelry. Silver was the only white metal available, and it was preferred specifically for diamond settings because its white surface beautifully highlighted the sparkle of the stones. And here we must mention Christopher Pinchbeck, a London watchmaker who in the early 18th century created a brilliant alloy. He mixed 83% copper and 17% zinc, and the result looked surprisingly similar to gold. Pinchbeck was not a fake or a fraud. No one tried to sell it as an expensive material. It was an honest alternative for those who couldn't afford 18-karat gold or who didn't want to wear their valuable jewellery while travelling, where there was a risk of robbery. Pinchbeck jewellery is highly sought after by collectors today because it's an authentic example of the design of that era. Now, iron and steel as jewellery materials might seem a bit surprising, right? But towards the end of the Georgian era, these metals actually found their way into the jewellery boxes of high society. Berlin iron jewellery first appeared around 1804, but it really became popular and symbolic during the Napoleonic Wars. The Prussian royal family asked the aristocracy to donate their precious gemstones to help with the war effort. In return, they received iron jewellery with an inscription that read, "Gold gab ich für Eisen." I gave gold for iron. These pieces became symbols of patriotism and sacrifice, and wearing them commanded respect. And faceted steel jewellery? Those were truly amazing feats of engineering. They were originally made from the same material used for horseshoe nails, and they consisted of individually faceted, polished steel beads that sparkled just like the diamond cuts of the time. Napoleon even bought a set for Empress Marie-Louise, and Catherine the Great was famously painted wearing a huge steel jewellery set. These pieces proved that creative design and precise craftsmanship could be much more important than expensive materials. It's also worth taking a moment to talk about diamond cuts, because the Georgian era used two distinct cutting techniques that were quite different from what we see today. The rose cut was first created in the 16th century, but it really hit its peak during the Georgian period. These diamonds were flat on the bottom, meaning they didn't have a pavilion, and on top they had a dome-shaped section covered with triangular facets. These facets were arranged in a symmetrical pattern, usually between 3 and 24 of them, and their appearance truly resembled the arrangement of rose petals. But the main point wasn't just how they looked, it was their purpose. These diamonds were specifically designed for candlelight. The large, wide facets worked perfectly in low light conditions, creating a dreamy, glowing aura. When a lady walked into a candlelit ballroom wearing rose-cut diamonds, her entire jewellery seemed to glow from within. Another special way diamonds were cut was called the old mine cut. This way of cutting was popular from the early 1700s to the late 1800s. These diamonds usually had a square, cushion-like shape with rounded corners, a small flat top, and a tall upper part. At the bottom, they had a tiny, flat surface called a culet, which is a key feature of these diamonds. Because each stone was cut by hand, every piece was unique, meaning no two old mine-cut diamonds were exactly alike. Their sparkle was softer and warmer than modern brilliant cuts. It didn't blind you, but rather drew you in. Coloured gemstones became popular again after 1750. Garnets, topazes, emeralds, rubies, sapphires, amethysts, turquoises, corals, ivory, pearls, and various other minerals filled jewellery boxes. A particularly fashionable combination was ruby and pearl together, the contrast of red and white, the meeting of fire and purity. Now, we need to learn about a technique that was very important in Georgian-era jewelry, the closed-back setting and foiling. Today, we usually see open-back settings, where the back of the gemstone is open and light can pass through. But in the Georgian era, most settings were closed. The back of the stone was completely covered. This allowed for an old but very effective technique, foiling. So, what's foiling? It's when a thin piece of metal is put behind a gemstone. This makes the gem reflect more light and look like it has a deeper, richer color. This trick did a few things. It made clear stones brighter, made light colors stronger, and made dull stones shiny. It was especially good in candlelight because the foil would bounce back every little bit of light, making the jewelry almost come alive. Even though we don't see foiled jewelry much today, it was super high-tech in the Georgian era. Jewelers back then knew exactly how to get the most out of the materials they had. Now, using fake gemstones is probably the most interesting part. It really shows how clever and practical people were back then. In 1724, a man named Georg Friedrich Strauss made a special kind of glass with a lot of lead in it. He polished it with metal powder until it sparkled just like a diamond. These fakes weren't seen as cheap copies back then. They were valued for what they were. This special glass could be colored with different pigments to look like any gemstone. It also let jewelers create shapes that would have been too delicate or too expensive to make with real diamonds. The most important thing to remember is that wearing these fake gems wasn't something to be ashamed of. Even the fanciest people wore jewelry with imitation gemstones. It wasn't a sign of being poor, but a way to show off your style and smarts. Today, these pieces are very special to collectors because they are rare examples of designs from that time. Many real diamond pieces were melted down or taken apart, but these pieces have stood the test of time. Among the different types of jewelry, girandole earrings were special. They had 3 dangling pear-shaped decorations hanging from a central bow design. This style was popular for about 100 years. It really showed off the beauty of rose-cut diamonds. They would shimmer and sparkle with every movement, creating a halo of light around the wearer's face. When fashion changed, these pieces were often taken apart and remade into different styles. That's why original girandole earrings are very rare today. Giardinetti, which means little gardens in Italian, were pieces of jewelry that looked like a flower vase or a flower basket. They featured colourful flower arrangements made from rubies, emeralds, and sapphires. These were often exchanged as gifts of love between sweethearts and friends. A Giardinetti brooch or ring wasn't just jewelry. It carried feelings and emotions. Jewelry sets, or parures, naturally represented complete elegance. A parure was a matching set of jewelry that could include as many as 16 pieces: a necklace, earrings, a brooch, a bracelet, a tiara, and hairpins. They were made with matching gemstones and a consistent theme. When a lady appeared at a ball wearing a full parure, the message was clear: sophistication, wealth, and style. En tremblant, which means to tremble in French, was a special way of making jewelry. Parts of the jewelry were put on tiny springs, so they would shake and sparkle with every movement. This was often used on earrings, brooches, and hair combs. Imagine a lady turning her head, and her earring doesn't just move with her, but it seems to have a life of its own. Each diamond shimmers, and the light constantly bounces off their surfaces in different ways. And now, we get to maybe the most interesting part of the Georgian era: mourning jewelry and sentimental pieces. These jewels weren't just decorations anymore. They told stories, held feelings, and kept memories alive. The idea of memento mori, which is Latin for remember that you will die, was a big part of this time. Mourning jewelry didn't try to make death look pretty or hide it. Instead, it faced death head-on. Skulls and bones, coffins and hourglasses, urns, weeping willows, and pearls that looked like tears. These symbols were all on the jewellery. This might seem a bit creepy today, but back then it was normal. Death was a part of life, and jewellery carried that truth. A mourning ring wasn't just a memory. It was a constant reminder that time passes, and everyone will eventually die. Hair jewellery brought a whole new dimension. Putting hair into jewellery goes back at least to the 17th century, but it became really special in the Georgian era. Hair was a symbol of me. Giving someone your hair was a true sign of love, because you were giving a part of yourself. And at the same time, hair grows back, so it stood for an eternal connection. And when someone passed away, their hair became a relic, the only physical thing left of them. They would take a single strand of hair or create tiny pictures from intricate patterns, keeping them safe under crystal glass. There are rings where hair was woven into a miniature landscape, a weeping willow, an urn, maybe the ruins of a Gothic church in the background. Every part was a symbol, and the hair itself was the main thing, the physical presence of the loved one in the jewellery. Among sentimental jewellery, acrostic pieces were clever little games. The whole idea of an acrostic is that the first letters of gemstones spell out words. The most famous one is the regard ring. Ruby, emerald, garnet, amethyst, ruby, diamond. There were other popular words too, like dearest, adore, or love. This fashion was made popular by Napoleon, who ordered several acrostic pieces for Josephine. Wearing a ring like this wasn't just about the jewellery, it was a secret message that everyone could see, but only the person it was meant for truly understood. Lover's eye miniatures were a short but very popular trend, roughly between 1790 and 1820. These were painted miniature portraits that only showed the eye of a loved one. This trend started when the Prince of Wales, who later became King George IV, secretly showed his feelings for Maria Fitzherbert. A full portrait of her face would have been too obvious, but her eye could be recognised by the person it was meant for, while outsiders wouldn't know who it was. The idea was brilliant. A declaration of love that could be worn in public, yet still kept secret. Painting the eyes required incredibly fine work. Every eyelash and glint of light mattered, because the whole person had to be understood from just that one eye. A chatelaine was both a practical item and a fancy piece of jewellery that showed off your status. It was a set of chains hanging from a belt buckle, with everyday items like scissors, a notepad, a pocket watch, sewing tools, keys, and perfume bottles attached. Wearing a chatelaine was a sign of status because having keys showed you were in charge of the household. Younger women often wore more decorative chatelaines, with sparkly ornaments instead of practical items. These were also great conversation starters. During the Georgian era, jewellery was strictly sorted by when it was proper to wear it. During the day, you could wear necklaces or chains with watches, cameos, small rings with coloured stones, matching bracelets, earrings of any length, and of course, the chatelaine. But in the evening, diamonds took centre stage. Rose-cut and old mine-cut diamonds, Riviere necklaces, girandole earrings, and sparkling tiaras were all essential for candle-lit balls. And gentlemen wore beautiful status-showing shoe buckles and buttons, decorated with diamonds, imitations, and precious stones. The history behind these pieces is super important too. Marie Antoinette's love for jewellery really influenced all of Europe before the French Revolution. The diamond necklace scandal in 1785 definitely made the French monarchy less popular, but the Queen's style and taste are still a big deal today. The discovery of diamond mines in Brazil in the early 18th century gave us a lot of diamonds, and that totally changed the market. Diamonds became easier to get and were the top choice for evening wear, It's important to understand why real Georgian jewellery is so rare today. For one, jewellers back then often melted down old-fashioned pieces to make new ones. It was a smart way to save money. Also, the closed back settings are super delicate. Water and moisture can ruin the foil inside, and just one wrong cleaning can destroy a perfect piece of jewellery that's been around for centuries. The light, pressed or hollow parts get dented easily, and many sets were split up among family members over the years. Out of 17 pieces in a jewellery set, maybe only 3 are together today. The rest were given to different heirs generations ago. So, Georgian-era jewellery wasn't just pretty decorations. These pieces were a special mix of craftsmanship, romance, and new ideas. From rose-cut diamonds to sentimental hair jewellery, from mysterious lover's eye miniatures to elegant imitation jewels, each piece tells a story. When we hold a piece of Georgian jewellery today, we're not just touching gold and diamonds. We're touching a piece of a past world when jewellery was a deep way to show feelings, social status, and human connections. The message from the Georgian era is still true today. Behind every piece of jewellery is a story, and these stories live on through time, fashion, and even their wearers. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the world of Georgian-era jewellery. If you enjoyed this video and want to dive deeper into the amazing universe of antique jewellery, then hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Every week we'll explore new eras, techniques, and stories together. If there's a topic you'd like to hear about, let me know in the comments. Thanks for being here. See you in the next video.